where is this from? Go for it.
It doesn't get a lot more Italian than this.
Good. Why do you say Italian?
Because of the treatment of coloratura. It is particularly reminiscent of the everybody that started writing after Monteverdi when he published La Incoronazione di Poppea.
Seconda pratica.
Seconda pratica.
Yeah. Wow, good. So, what influences do you hear in this?
There's a kind of maybe a dance. There's a three. Amidst the recitative, there's some built-in dance.
Yeah. What else? Is it dramatic?
Yes.
Feels so, yes.
Yeah, like opera.
Yes.
So this is middle of 1600s. Do you think this is sacred or secular?
Sacred.
Why did you say that?
Actually, I take that back. I think it's secular.
You were right.
Secular.
It's sacred.
It's sacred?
The giveaway is that it was in Latin.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's not necessary. Okay. So today what I want to do is talk about Barbara and Chiara, and instead of diving in on one piece, I just want to draw some comparisons between women composers in the 15th century, 17th century, 1600s. Yeah, so let's go on. So we've got these two parallel things. I know that's a little bit hard to read. Let's start with Barbara Strozzi. She was born in 1619. She was the daughter of Giulio Strozzi. He adopted her. She might have been illegitimate. She might have just been a cool person that, he liked. Kid running around his house. Giulio was big into opera. He was like BFFs with every opera composer in Venice. The Strozzis were a very illustrious family in Florence, like big name, money, power, influence, and in Italy at this time, family power was everything. Barbara was a singer. She performed for all sorts of courts, ducal courts, as well as for her father's salons that he put on. And then for vocal music, she published 8 volumes of madrigals, mostly about love, but she did have one book of sacred madrigals that she published, and that is the book that everyone likes to write about, and nobody wants to write about any of her other stuff. So today, I'm going to give you an intro to her first book of madrigals. On the opposite side, Chiara Margherita Cozzolani she was also a daughter of wealthy family. The Cozzolanis in Milan were very influential. She went to a bougie monastery. There were tiers of monasteries, and like the rich people got to go to the Benedictine monasteries, where the families would pay for their daughter to live, and also some extra stipend money. And so that'll come up later, I'll talk about that. The only 2 surviving pieces of hers that we have are the 1642 Concerti Sacri, and then the 1650, which I'm editing, Salmi a otto voci. She did write, though, one secular cantata in Italian, but it got destroyed along with the Abbey. So just for some context, this is a map of Europe in the 1648. Spain and France were like, and they were having some issues, and Spain actually had conquered Milan. So Milan was under Spanish rule while Chiara Margherita was alive. So this is Milan. Venice is over here. Can you see how close to the rest of Europe they are? So they're considered like the gateway to Europe, or to Italy, the gateway there. So actually, Chiara Margherita's music was circulated all over Europe. She was pretty famous. And her publication was published in Venice, even though she's from Milan, because people all over were reading her stuff. Same with Barbara. Both composers have this Italian opera stuff going on, florid, virtuosic solos and duets. Then there's like that primo pratica stuff with the homophonic choral texture, and then lots of very vivid text painting, not just in secular works, but also in sacred works. And the form of every piece and the form of the Book of Madrigals and the Vespers has a very good sense of timing and drama. There's just this it works together like a show should. Both of these composers had a really good sense about that. So let's talk about Strozzi's Opus 1, published in 1644. She dedicated to the Duchess of Tuscany, and in her dedication, she apologizes for being a woman. By her 8th book of madrigals, she's like, I am a woman, I can do anything as well as any man. But her first book, she wasn't there yet. So here is some virtuosity that you can find in her little short virtuosic clip. This is the prelude, or the introduction. She's got some humor. These recordings are done by the Orlando di Lasso Ensemble, and they really draw out the meaning. Like this stuff isn't written in the music, but they really bring out the comedy. There's a part in that book where there's a poem that has Barbara, and she spends a lot of time repeating ba la Barbara, like really because it's her name. She's like, oh, it's my name. Don't forget it. I'm Barbara. In case you forgot it. So she like makes a lot of that. And then here is this is like towards the end. It's a bunch of dudes promising that they give up. They're not gonna try to fight love anymore, no matter how many times it kicks them over. Where'd you go? Sorry.
Senza gloria, senza gloria non sia, predestinto mi veglia, amor per me, a te.
There's a part later on in that piece where the tenor is basically clucking like a chicken. It's just really funny. Like he's saying the words polka polka polka, and he's like polka 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 polka. Like they really run with it. She's funny. She's got a great sense of humor. This is my favorite piece and I sent it to you in an email. The whole thing. We're just going to listen to the first part. This one is really sincere. And it translates to dolcissimi, sweet, and then breath, respiri, and this line just like really breathes in this more of a primo pratica setup. So just listen to it. I just like it. I think that you guys should do it with your choirs because it's not that hard and it's really pretty. It's just really beautiful. I think everybody should do it. Let's talk about Cazzolani. So here is her Vespers. I've been working on this all summer, and each one of her psalms is about 10 minutes long. So unless you want to do an entire concert of just Cazzolani, I feel like one psalm would be good. But it's great for the seconda pratica because there's so much text. Psalms are lots of text, and there's so much emotion that she gets to work with here. So here's an example of some virtuosic solo lines. This is from, I can't remember which one I put right here. This might be the Dixit Dominus. Oh yeah. Virtuosity to describe. Something else I wanted to point out is she's both Barbara in that last thing that we listened to. They have the Dolci Simi, and then they start the song. Mm-hmm. Same thing here, Dixit, and then they start the song. Mm-hmm. And Catalani does that a lot. Same thing with the thing that Domino Deus in Adjutorium, meum intende, Domine, and then they start the piece. So that's a really interesting stylistic thing that they all do. This is Confitebor tibi Domine. I set it for, it was published for double choir SATB, but the recording, there is no record of it being performed SSAATTBB. It was done by nuns in their convent. In fact, choir 1 nuns and choir 2 nuns were like rivals, and they got into lots of fights over who got to practice on the muted organ. And like the old people were probably choir 1, and the young people were like up and coming choir 2s, and there was just all this drama. Wow. Also, the singing nuns were extremely important. They had a lot of power because they were so popular. People would come from all over Europe to Milan just to listen to this polyphony from the nuns. They were famous all over Europe, Italy, all over for their beautiful singing. And to the point where the archbishop was like, no more polyphony. You're coming to church for the wrong reasons. And Chiara Margherita was like, no. And because she had ties to like really wealthy, powerful family ties, she was able to just like, he didn't mean that, and just like blew him off. So for a nun to contradict the archbishop, that's a big deal. So this is Confitebor with just treble voices, and I really like it. So I chose to write this arrangement as if it were 2 cori spezzati. That's how the part books are published online, but other versions have everybody mixed up. Sometimes there's cori spezzati, sometimes they're like paired in different ways, so you know, you could do it your own thing. One more thing I wanted to point out about these two women, Barbara and Chiara, is that as women composers, they owed their success to patronage by men. So in Barbara's case, her father, he wrote the lyrics, he wrote the libretto to her first book of madrigals, all the poetry, and he really went to bat for her. He really paved the way for her as a singer and as a composer. And so because he was known in opera, she was able to have success. If she tried to do this by herself, it wouldn't work. In fact, her career actually kind of declined after he died. So family ties, same thing with Chiara. Her family was really powerful in Milan, and they were able to give her a voice, give her power. The institution of the church allowed Chiara to be able to write music because she's female nuns, Benedictine, there were no men to write music for her in that particular space, so she's allowed to write music. With Barbara, the institution of the cultural elites, the intellectual elites, all these rich courts, all of the this hierarchy of people sharing ideas, she was allowed to be part of that, and that gave her a voice as well. And then finally, one of the first things in music history class that you learned about Barbara Strozzi was that she was a courtesan. That's not actually proven. We don't know. It's possible. It's likely even that she was a courtesan. But so I think it's interesting that here we have Chiara Margherita, who literally had to go through a death ritual as part of becoming a nun. They symbolize death and resurrection as a new person. And it's this virgin sacrifice is basically what's happening when a nun takes her vows. And so the question of her sexuality just doesn't exist. She's a nun now. God, that's it. And then on the far end of the spectrum, you have Barbara, whose sexuality is everything. And so, she's not a respectable woman in that way, so it's okay for her to be outspoken and loud because she's a courtesan. What would you expect? And I think that there's this really interesting dichotomy about being women and how they had to be on these two opposite ends of the spectrum in order to be heard. So what are your thoughts about this music? What do you think sounds hard? What sounds fun? What sounds interesting?